We're live.
Hey everyone, welcome to our Tribe Talks for this week. It's a bit exciting this week. We've got multiple people jumping on to be interviewed. We're doing a bit of a panel today. There might be three, so we're just not sure whether two or three are going to jump on. Vera may join us too. So we'd love to welcome Jane and Meg to our Tribe Talks for this week. So before we get into exactly what we're talking about today, I forgot. I better tell everyone, if this is your first time on Tribe Talks, what we do is every week we interview a parent or parents, in this case, from our community that have a child with a condition or additional needs. And why we want to do this is to create a community or world where there is more understanding, more compassion, and more love, and like just understanding what people go through on a day-to-day basis, right? Because we just don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And if we chose kindness first, the world would be a much more beautiful place. So today we are talking to Jane and Meg, and their children have a condition called Cat 6A, I believe. And it's very, very rare. So I'm not going to try and be an expert at that because I actually don't really know much about it. So I'm going to learn like everybody else today. So we're just going to have a chat to them today about what this condition is, what their lives look like, and how they see us as a global community, how we can help families like theirs. So welcome, Jane and Meg.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us today. So fill us in, I don't know who wants to go first, but tell us a bit about your story. Like, how did you find out about this with your child? Like, what's life? How's this happened for you?
Do you want me to go, Jane? I'll go. So I, like most people in this journey, at some point along the line, someone sort of says, I think something's wrong with your child, whether that's the right wording or not, I don't know, but you get the picture. And so I was ready to leave hospital on day 5, having been in there, packed up, ready to go. And the nurse came in and said, I think you need to see a pediatrician. I think something's up. Hi, Vera. And then it went from there, flown down to Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne. Everything's okay, sent home, all that sort of jazz, very similar to everyone else's. And then we saw a geneticist, and then it took about a year to get a diagnosis. And when we did, he came back and said, we think she has something called Cat 6A, and we don't know of anyone in Australia who has it. So immediately I found the support group on Facebook, which was fantastic. And even though I haven't met majority of them, they're like another family for me now. They're so supportive. And then I think Vera, I remember when Frankie was diagnosed, because he was next in Australia, so we were straight on the phone to each other.
So there's only 11 kids in Australia, right?
There'll be more. It's just that's all that's
that
known.
we know of that's been diagnosed.
Wow.
Yeah. So
hi, Vera. Sorry, thanks for
Meg.
joining us. Vera's doing school drop-off, and she's a super mum, so she jumped on to chat with us while she's doing that.
You really is a super mum.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Meg. I think we've got a bit of a delay. Go for it.
No, that's fine. I'm aware of time, so I think that's enough about just me and how I found out. And, I mean, just suffice to say that I think everyone reacts differently, and that's one thing I've learned is how you handle finding out your child has additional needs or has a rare syndrome is completely unique, and it's completely fine. Some people take months to join our support group because they're just devastated and they don't know what it means, and that's a big part of having a rare syndrome is you don't know what the future holds. And even with Cat 6A, the symptoms are varied, so it's really difficult to know. For me, when I found out, I'm just one of those people. I'm a bit competitive, I suppose, and positive. And I was like, right, what can we do? What can I be? How can I fix this? And as you delve into the world of it, you realise that it is so much more challenging than I could have ever imagined. But, like with everything, so much more joy than I could have ever imagined as well.
Absolutely. It's such a great perspective to have. Jane, do you want to fill us in on your journey?
So we found out about Carter a bit later in age, and lucky for us, we already had other people that we could connect with. But when Carter was born, that's when they felt something wasn't right, and they started the genetic testing. Carter was born in 2014, and it wasn't discovered to 2016, Cat 6A. So our journey took 4 years for us to do it. So we done multiple genetic tests, and we were lucky to go on a trial in New South Wales. And one of the main reasons was to show the government why it's important to give this option. We done multiple at minimum costs. So we went in it, and to be honest, on the day I went and saw our geneticist, I went in there thinking we're just going to be told there's nothing again.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she said that we found something, I just went blank. I went shock. I couldn't believe that I was hearing something was found. And then I think I went through a lot of emotions within that frame of appointment, where I went from shock, sad, what's this life going to be for Carter? How's it going to work for our family? We were quite lucky. Our geneticist said that, there has been people diagnosed in Australia, and gave us some information. And as soon as I got out of the hospital, I went on to my phone and I started looking up support groups, like what Meg said. And I was very fortunate to be introduced to both Vera and Meg.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's our journey. So we were quite fortunate in ways that we were able to find some people in Australia that we could connect with straight away. But like Meg said, like the community Cat 6A, it goes across the world. We may have never met them physically, but very supportive family.
Oh, fantastic. Vera, tell us a little bit about your story.
I hope, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Really clear.
I really don't know where to begin. Frankie had a really rocky start. Frankie probably has about 80% of every characteristic that a Cat 6A child can have. He has, beside a couple of little things. So Frankie was born on Mother's Day on 2016, and he was a delight, and we were like all, really happy. But the day he was born, he had a traumatic birth. I wasn't able to deliver naturally and had an emergency cesarean because he was born with craniosynostosis, which means his cranium was pre-fused before birth, and that wasn't picked up, unfortunately, by ultrasounds, etc. Should have been, but just it was missed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I should have always had a cesarean birth with him, and I ended up labouring for 36 hours.
Oh, you poor thing. I was going to say he was never coming out. His head wouldn't move.
And he was meant to be my V-back baby, so that's another journey. So anyway, so he came into the world and had some difficulties straight off the bat, but he actually had really good APGAR scores, and we were told that he had craniosynostosis, and we were really worried because I didn't understand exactly what that was about. And I remember on the second or third day, I was already in hospital. I already had a 2-year-old at home, or about to be 2-year-old at home, and I started Googling syndromes associated with this, because innately I just had a feeling something wasn't right. And so I started looking at Apert syndrome, that as craniosynostosis. I started looking at all these other syndromes. Nothing was kind of fitting. It probably, Frankie then had cortical vision impairment, which he still has. He wasn't able to see. He still struggles to see, but can see a lot better. It's very grey area. And by about 4 to 6 months, he just wasn't tracking. He wasn't engaging. He wasn't looking at anybody in the eye. He wasn't tracking any objects. He wasn't pulling his head up off the ground. It was a severe gross developmental delay. And so I pushed and pushed and pushed. And Frankie also has dystonia, which is incredibly painful. It's a painful muscle movement disorder. That was really left undiagnosed. And until I went to the doctors and I said, my baby's not right, there's something wrong, they were just like, oh, every baby takes a while to develop, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm not first time mum, I've seen this before. And they just kept dismissing me until I basically went to PMH, which is now closed here in WA. And I said, look, I'm not leaving until I kind of am seen by somebody. Fast track. I went in multiple times to the doctors and multiple times to PMH, in emergency department. My child was screaming, writhing in pain. And I mean, when I say screaming and writhing in pain, I've never experienced this, and I don't think a lot of people go, oh yeah, my child has done that. No, this is different in every possible way. This is a neurological pain that they can't see where the pain is coming from. So I, by 9 months, I admitted myself with my son, and I said, I will not leave the hospital until I am seen by a neurologist, and I will not leave the hospital until I see a pediatrician who hears me and hears my concerns. By that time, Frankie was still not looking. He was not sitting. He was not moving his head up. Like, you could tell there was something quite not right. And a young doctor came in at 9:30 at night and he goes, your son has GDD, global developmental delay. And I'm surprised no one's picked this up earlier. And that was at 9:30 at night. And I went, what does that mean? My husband had already gone home. I had no supports. So they let me down. They dropped the ball there. And of course they said, don't Google anything. I Googled, and that was the first kind of insight that I had about the possibility of my child having, a cognitive developmental, an intellectual disability of any kind. And I went, whoa. Yeah. I didn't sleep all night until I could contact my husband, and then fast track. That's at 9 months old. That's when he actually got diagnosed with something, and it took us another year before we got our Cat 6A diagnosis. That's my journey. Yeah.
Your passion just comes through as you speak. Like, I've had goosebumps for like the past minute, but I also think like all of you have very similar stories, but just like the importance of being an advocate for your child and following your gut instinct. And like, because if people just tell you like, no, it's fine, or just wait, or, you're wrong, or you're overthinking or whatever, it's like, no, being up to like having the ability and the courage to stand up and ask the questions and say, I am being admitted right now, like, because we need support is, the number one thing that we can do. So you're awesome. You're all awesome.
Like, advocacy is such an important skill that all mums need to learn, regardless of diagnosis or not, but more so with a child with additional needs. And Jane said something about the uncertainty, which I think is so relatable as well, because again, regardless of the diagnosis, that uncertainty of your child being different, no one knows what to expect. And even if it is a common, disability or condition, every kid's different, right? Like, it's every child's different, whether they're neurotypical or not.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I know with Carter, similar to Vera, like, Carter got multiple tests for lots of different things, like Williams syndrome. He got tested for Fragile X, like multiple of different ones. And I looked up every single one too. And I went in one stage and I said, well, can we check for certain ones as well? Because, we're coming back with nothing each time. And the other thing that I faced was a lot of people telling me what my child had, but not have the backings behind it. Right. So that was really great to hear, especially when we didn't have a diagnosis and you're already like frantically looking at stuff. And so that was one of the wonderful things I had, like, being told my child had this, and I'm like, well, thank you for telling me, but the professionals haven't even told me. So
yeah.
We've got some love in the comments for you guys. So hi, Cat 6A fam. Awesome. So Lindsay says hi, and then Jennifer says she found out when her son was 10 years old, and
Hi, Lindsay.
only because I finally found a doctor who finally believed there was something more than developmental delay. Mums know best. Absolutely. You always got to trust that mum gut, right?
Mm.
Lindsay loves seeing you all working together to raise awareness. Sounds like a wonderful, supportive community you guys have.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful community. I think, in a way, being rare brings you all together so much in, such a stronger way, because we've only got each other.
Yeah. We've heard that a few times, actually, when we've interviewed different parents. It's so lovely. All right, so what are the top 3 things or symptoms or things you want people to know about Cat 6A? So if you're going to try and describe it to someone, like, what is Cat 6A? What are the things how does it affect your children?
Meg.
I think the biggest, the highest percentage of all the different characteristics that affects most is the speech delay. A lot of our kids are non-verbal, and when I say non-verbal, it doesn't mean they have nothing at all, although some do. Some, like Ginger, she'll say hi and bye, but it's often with prompts, and there's certainly no holding a conversation or anything. So speech delay is certainly the biggest. And then after that, it really varies. GI issues, having gastrointestinal issues is also a big contributing factor. And then for me, my other one would be sleep, which doesn't affect all the kids, but Ginger certainly is very difficult to settle, even on sleep medication and melatonin, and then she does not sleep the night through. So I have to sleep with her every night.
Wow, it's tough.
Yeah. So, and I know Frankie also has severe issues with GI and being nonverbal and sleep, and Frankie has a lot of other things. And then Carter, he's also nonverbal as well. And what would you say your top 3 are, Jane?
So nonverbal is a big one, but he's receptive. Like, he seems to understand stuff when we're talking to him. He just can't communicate across verbally. That's definitely one. Feeding issues we had. Over time, it's improved for us. I know some other families, they still do tube feeds and that, but that was a big issue for us. There was even a stage where they were looking that Carter had needed it. So that's like weight gain, and that was very slow for him. He was quite tiny when he was born, and he got quite sick within like 6 months, and with bronchiolitis. And when he was recovering, the hospital just kept going, no, he keeps losing weight, and I kept telling them he needs to drink. He doesn't eat, he can't eat solids yet, and so that was a whole different ball game for me. But feeding and the weight gain for us. And I think another issue for us has been similar. He doesn't have as bad with the constipation, but he does get constipated a fair bit, so we need to keep an eye on that as well. But yeah, I think the other thing I like to say is, even though our kids can be quite happy, they can be actually quite they're quite strong. So when they are trying to communicate that they're upset or frustrated, they actually can physically hurt us. And I know a lot of people feel that with different diagnoses and stuff like that, but I know I've been to work sometimes, like rubbing my chin because Carter's kicked me accidentally or on purpose, and it's like, wow. And I've had people say to me, oh geez, he's very strong, isn't he? And I'm like, you reckon?
Yeah.
Ginger held her head up at 1 month of age, like consistently could hold her head up. So yeah, the strength comes through it's sort of one or the other.
Different ways, yeah.
6A.
Variable. I think Vera's frozen. Is she? Is it just my screen?
She has. Oh no.
Okay. That's okay.
You're right, Jane, about the receptive communication. I teach Ginger a lot in terms of I'll ask her questions in a different way rather than saying, what letter is this? I'll say, show me the letter. And it's all about showing me rather than, hi.
Oh, hello. Can you ask Daddy, please? Ask Daddy. Thank you.
Rather than asking her to say, which I think is a really difficult thing for everyone else to learn, is how to teach, how to communicate in that way, rather than asking our kids to speak, because it's too bloody hard for them.
Exactly. You know what, Meg, you're talking my language. So I'm a teacher by trade and left teaching and have gone sort of back in a part-time capacity. But the education system and trying to get kids to fit into a mold doesn't work. And I'm so blessed that Amy goes to a special autism school where they design her learning activities around her and communicate in a way that she communicates. It's not like you have to learn like this. It's like, oh, she learns like that, so we will teach like that. Yeah. And I think there's a lot that the whole education system can learn from all of our kids who learn in different ways.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, learning in different ways. Like, some people are visual, some people are not. Some people needed to do it one-on-one. There's just all these different ways. And one thing I've really enjoyed with, I think this is one of the good parts, is learning all the different things on how to communicate as well. So,
it's amazing, isn't it? Because Charlie's quite speech delayed, and I remember when we were walking that initial path, like I thought, oh, there are no words, but the lady was like, she's still communicating with you. You're not
how to see the messages.
You haven't learned yet.
It's one of the things, I think, when you become mum of someone with additional needs, and we're talking, nonverbal, you don't realise how boxed in you are with your views and the way that you do things. And it's like being in the Matrix, when he suddenly you go, hang on.
I love that. It's so true. Yeah, just those broadening of perspectives, and you go, oh my gosh, we've been conditioned to believe that we need to learn and grow and develop in this way, even as adults. And then you have a child who's a bit different, and you're like, wow, there's a whole world out there. So for our
at a school once, and they were teaching him his certain letters and things, and they had them stuck on the door, and the teacher said, oh, sorry, I was trying to get past, and she said, oh, sorry, we're just doing some ninja kicks. And I looked and I thought, oh, this teacher was saying to him, show me the letter S or whatever, and he got to ninja kick the S stuck on the door. This is so cool. Did you love to ninja kick a door, the letters on the door,
The other thing I wanted to say was Carter had delays in walking as well, crawling, all that sort of stuff. He's also been diagnosed with CP within his ankles and legs. But I know Frankie's quite similar. He's had delays in walking and crawling. And I like to say, though, even though Carter was delayed in crawling and walking, he was perfect at climbing. He climbed everything. He climbed his chimney. So that child, he didn't walk or crawl, but he could climb.
He could climb. That's amazing.
That is incredible.
There's lots going on in the
board with their milestones, hence, the label global developmental delay. They're delayed across all those general milestones that a neurotypical child meets. But, they can get there, and they still might have some, with gross motor as an example, some balance issues and things, but they figure it out. Like all kids, I think, with additional needs, they're really resilient. Incredible.
Yeah. There's so much love in the comments coming through. I can't even pick it up.
It's a good family, this Cat 6A one.
Yeah. That's so good.
So glad they could join too, because I know they're all across in different countries where it might be bedtime for them.
So I've just put up a comment here from Shani Jacobs saying, okay, so what can we do better to be better for women like you. And that maybe leads on to the last question. So how can our families, say within Thrive Tribe community and then the wider community, support your community to be more maybe inclusive or understanding and just to help you as parents?
For me, it's just asking me questions, and not just a vague question, something specific. Like, I really want you to get to know Ginger and Cat 6A and her syndrome and what it's like. And I want you to watch how I interact with her, watch how I speak to her, watch the language that I use, and learn from that. I don't shy away from any questions. And I didn't know the language to use before I had Ginger, so I'm not sensitive about any of that stuff. I want you to learn, and that's how I think we get better. And apart from that, just understanding. I know it's hard to understand really what someone goes through unless you walk their shoes, and I get that. But just to understand, when I say, like Vera touched on before, it is different. It's like parenting on steroids. When I say she doesn't sleep well, it's next level, doesn't sleep well.
Yes.
And I find that I live a lot of my life in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
Because I'm so exhausted, because I have a million things going through my head. I had to say to my husband one time, but he would always say to me, how can I help? It might be in the morning and I'm so much going on in my head, and he'd say, how can I help? And I said to him one time, I feel like I'm on the hamster wheel and I'm going, and I've got the tweets and I've got these things and I'm thinking, and he says, how can I help? And I go, and then I've fallen off the wheel.
Oh my God, Meg, I can so relate. That's amazing.
I just need to stay on the wheel and either step out or step in and help and know what you've got to do. But don't ask me. I can't think because there's too much. And so every time someone asks me, which is a lot every day, whether it's the school or family or how can I help? It's like, I can't. I just, just watch and learn and ask specific questions, and I will tell you. And if I can't at the moment, I'll think about it, and then I'll call you or I'll text you, and it will take time, but that is the best way for me. How you can help is to learn and to then know, so that you don't have to ask. You can just step in, just slide on in.
I love that. Awesome. What about you, Jane?
I guess for me, I'm lucky to be part of the Tribe Strive & Co group as well, which was a really good support network, very similar to Meg. It's that hamster wheel going on, and like my example from yesterday was something slightly different. I put the wrong lunch boxes in both the boys' bags, and it sounds quite minor, but it's like, oh, hang on, but Carter really needs to have this because it's cut a certain size so he can eat it. And then Aiden would be like looked at going, why do you have this type of bottle, So it kind of made my day go crazy. But yeah, it's very flight or fight mode I'm in as well. I think one of the things that I faced was when Carter was diagnosed was people didn't ask us straight up. They went around about and asked other people. And so just similar, ask us, like, one of the things about K86A, it's a genetic one, but it's not necessarily passed down from the parents. Obviously when if Carter has children, of course there's 50% of it, but it's just a fluke of nature. And I think, just like we've said, kids are unique. They're all different. Everyone has these little quirks that makes them unique, and that's the same with our kids. Our kids are just different. Carter and Sam, you've met Carter, and Steph's met Carter.
Gorgeous.
He's in another world, and sometimes I want to be in that world. He's happy, he's laughing most of the time. He gives the best hugs to people.
He's very affectionate, yeah.
Yeah, and like I remember going to a kid's party and kids were looking at him weird, and they asked questions, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But then, parents pulling their kids away doesn't not help at all. They're who they are, we who we are, and you never know, these kids could be great at something in the future. I know, and Meg may have seen it, that a young guy has graduated from high school over in America, and he's going to university next semester. So yeah, just support us. And I think one of the other things is, and I know you guys have brought it up, is just be kind. It's hard for people to understand if they're not in the situation. It's and I don't expect everyone to understand. You know, I never fully understood it either when I was pre-children. Like, I understood a little, but not to the extent that I understand now. There's a good chance, just ask if we're okay even. Are you okay? I know that sounds a bit silly, but
I might bawl my eyes out if someone asked me that.
but that's the thing. Like, are you
I'm
okay?
not okay.
Because you're not.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you know, it's that tiredness that we all face all the time, and it's not just tired like mentally and
More
physically.
tired,
It's
yeah.
just tired, and sometimes you want to crawl into that hole, but you know you can't because you've got to advocate for stuff that you feel you shouldn't have to advocate at this time. But,
There's always something to do. There's always something to think about. There's always a lot. And when you are physically, emotionally, mentally exhausted, and that's why I say you're often in that fight or flight mode, which is not a good place to live. It's not healthy.
No,
And
no.
I think, you know, probably a lot of additional needs mums, you know, end up with health issues of their own because you live in that state. And so just understand,
Absolutely.
just cut us a break.
Totally. And that's why Thrive Tribe and Co was born, to be honest. It started with those statistics around parents and their health. It was actually the fatality statistics around cancer, heart disease, and misadventure, which covers accident, suicide, and homicide. And they were really, really confronting. And that's where Thrive Tribe and Co was born, because we're like, that's not okay. We need to change those statistics. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. If there's so many people watching from the US, there's so much love. Actually, let's just read out a couple of these comments before we finish.
Where to begin?
Amelia it's the last one, Steph. So Amelia has said she's from Melbourne with a 15-year-old, and lovely to hear from you. Thank you for sharing. She doesn't feel as alone now, as not too many people are aware of Cat 6A.
It's amazing.
Amelia,
jump on
Messenger.
Yeah, definitely. There was lots of love further up in the comments. There's heaps of them. So Lindsay had to jump off, but she's loved the call. Natasha from New York was watching. Katie was also there from the USA. Her son turned 5 in April. She could relate to a lot of the symptoms and stuff that you guys were talking about. So it's such a wonderful community that you guys have. And if there is anyone out there who needs some support, jump into our Thrive Tribe and Co Connect group. It's our free community group. We have a big focus on self-care. It's a wonderful space where there is no judgment. We do regular meetups online, and we do have people joining us from all over the place. We often have one of our girls from Las Vegas tune in to our calls, which is really nice. So there's a Wednesday call tonight, Sydney time at 8 p.m. There's actually we do a Friday night catch up. You are welcome to bring your favorite glass of whatever that is, water, wine, or whatever. And that's a really great time where we just chill and decompress and get out of that fight or flight mode. So if you need that, we'll be on there at 8 o'clock tonight. Thank you for tuning in to Tribe Talk.
Dance on the table.
Yeah,
Totally welcome to do that. No judgment.
We said last week we had some really funny conversations last week, and everyone's like, "What'd you talk about?" We're like, "What happens on Friday night drinks stays on Friday night." So if you want to dance on the table, you are very welcome. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Just join us each Friday. We're going to do these Tribe Talks. There'll be different parents every week. So if you've enjoyed it, please share. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Sandy. Thanks, Steph. See you, Jane. Bye.
Bye.